Today's date is November the 19th, 2010. Time is now 8:49. I am here with Miss Vicky Harwell at her office here in Pulaski, Tennessee. We're going to be discussing an incident that occurred at the Chamber of Commerce chili cook-off involving Mr. Bob Hughes. Miss Vicky, if you don't mind, just basically just step me through the chain of events that occurred that evening, and then we'll go back and discuss that after you just walk me through that.
Well, we had prepared all day for the chamber cook-off, and I had called the fire department prior to the cook-off several days before because we had talked about having a fire pit on the square, which is something we had done before and had permitted several years ago, and so that was kind of our intention. And when I contacted the fire department, I was told that I wouldn't need a permit if we did that because the chamber's parade permit would cover the event. So we had already cooked our chili at home, and we had I call it a burner. I don't really know what it is. It's a fish cooker we use at home. That's what we use it for. But it had a stock pot of chili with about 8 gallons of chili, and it had a new gas tank hooked up to it. And I don't know much about hooking tanks up and burners, but all I know is the chili had been cooked at home, and it was on a to warm the chili. That's basically
yes,
it.
Ma'am.
Weren't even cooking. In fact, it was similar to what the Pulaski Fire Department had on the opposite corner.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's basically what we were doing, and everybody was out there, family, co-workers. We were having a good time. It had just got underway. And Bob Hughes came up. And the first time I saw him, he walked past me. I was standing out on the edge of the street and talking to someone, and he walked past me, and he walked to within inches of my husband, who was sitting on a stool near the front of Harwell, Plant & Williams, stirring the stock pot of chili. And he had his video camera videoing from top to bottom of Terry and our chili setup. And I remember somebody in the crowd saying, "Well, look there, Terry, they already think you're going to have the winning chili. You know, he's videotaping you." And I knew right away that that was not Bob Hughes' intent. I knew he had come looking for trouble. It was not a new thing. Mr. Hughes has been stalking me since the hot part of summer. I'd say at least since July. He would make it a habit of loitering or hanging out over here at the business next door, 3D Beauty Supply. And when I would come in and out of my office where I worked, he had a habit of confronting me and saying ugly things, being loud on the sidewalk, comparing me to Dan Spear, begging me to run for mayor, saying that I was just like Dan Spear, would be no different. I mean, just real rude,
Was he
abusive.
begging you to run or begging you not to run? What was he?
Well, he would say, I remember one time he said, I was getting out of the car and coming into the office, and I remember he approached me. He would make a habit of, if you looked at the storefront next door, the windows jut out further than the door, and he would make it a habit of being in that recessed area. And he would come from there and approach me. In other words, when I'd pull in to park to come into my office, I wouldn't see him. So he would approach from that recessed area next door. And one time I remember that he started out and he was going real silly, "Please, oh please, oh please, oh please, oh please, do run for mayor." And I looked at him and I said, "I beg your pardon." And at that time, we had only just announced. I mean, it was the beginning of, I guess, summer, if you will, because we qualified in April and the race was just kind of beginning to pull together. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And so he starts to berate me and to tell me how I'm no different than Dan Spear and I'm this and I'm that. And so it turned into a confrontation out on the sidewalk in front of my place of employment. And so I said to him, I said, you don't know me. You don't know me well enough to be making any of those comments. And he kept on, just kept on. And I said, Mr. Hughes, if you want to talk to me like an adult, you're welcome to make an appointment with me or come to see me, and we'll sit down and we'll discuss any issues you have. But that's not how he wanted to handle it. So I came on in the office, and my coworker said, what was that all about? I mean, she sits right in the front window and you know, could see some of this. So anyway, that's typical of what I've endured from Bob Hughes everywhere I've seen him throughout the past several months. It even goes back to when there was the last county general election. And my husband was on the ballot, and I was working the poll at the rec center, and he came up, and he was mouthing at that time, and I would just walk away from him. So my typical response to Bob Hughes is to walk away. I have never approached his place of business. I have never knowingly approached him to discuss anything. So at the chili cook-off, when I saw him with his camera, I knew there was going to be trouble. And after he videotaped my husband, he came over to where I was standing, and he had a stack of papers, I'd say at least a half-inch thick. And I really couldn't tell what they were. And he was waving them in my face within inches of my nose, and he was demanding for me to tell him why, as a city alderman, I thought I could break city ordinances. And so I tried at first a rational approach, and I said, Mr. Hughes, I've called the fire department. You know, I didn't need any permit. I'm not trying to break the ordinance, blah, blah, blah. I tried to explain to him. It got worse and worse. Well, you think because you're a city alderman you can break blah, blah, blah. And I know Mr. Hughes, his game, he feels that everybody on the city council has ruined him, and that we're the reason for his detriment, I guess. And he has a need to vindicate himself. He is a victim in his mind. And in reality, he victimizes everyone else, in my opinion. But he was waving these papers, and have you ever videotaped anything?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I've had classes that we have gone to, you know. I've been to video instructor school, and I've been associated with that through the police department.
I have children and grandchildren, and the times that I've tried to videotape, you know what I've realized? I'm so intent on what I'm videotaping that I don't see anything else that goes on. And I've actually missed, when I've tried to videotape my son playing ball, for instance, and just videotape him, I miss everything else that's going on because I'm so intent on the videotape. And I think that Mr. Hughes was so intent that night on getting what he wanted on his little camera that he doesn't really realize what all went on around him and how everybody else reacted to what he did. He was so angry and just in your face that people started begging him to leave. And I asked him, please leave. You know, I didn't invite him up here. It was a public event, but he seems to be under the impression that as long as he is on a public sidewalk, he can do anything he wants to do and he can say anything he wants to say to anybody. And that's not the way I see it. He came here looking for trouble. He kept on. He was in my face. At one point, he had his hand, and I don't know which hand because he was behind me at that point. I was trying to turn and walk away, but he actually had his hand around and on my arm, pushing me, okay? That was the first time he touched me. And I turned back around and I said, please leave. Just go away. And that's when he kept saying, you know, it's a public sidewalk. I can do anything I want to. I can be here, you know. And I said, not if you're going to create this problem. If you see his little videotape with me on the telephone, that's when I pulled my phone off my belt and I called 911 because I knew then that it was escalating. He wouldn't go away. There were men here. I knew that there was going to be a fight if somebody didn't get there and defuse him. So while I'm trying to call, he shoves me the second time. I've got my back to him with my camera, my phone to my ear. He shoves me the second time. When he does that, I say, Terry, you're going to have to handle this. I really thought that Bob Hughes intended to slap me around that night. He had already had his hands on me twice, and I hear now that he says it was incidental contact. I don't know what he wants to call it, but he had his hands on me twice. In essence, he actually touched me 3 times. When Terry got up off his stool during all of this, my husband was sitting on the stool against the building, stirring the chili. People were coming to get chili. They were being served. So then when Terry gets up and walks toward us, I turn to Terry, and I'm talking to him, and Bob Hughes shoves me. And I don't know if it was with his chest, his stomach, I don't know what he shoved me in the back with, but he shoves me up against my husband, pushes me. And I think he was trying to get his camera closer to Terry's face is what I think he was doing. I think that Bob Hughes, every move he made that night was to get his camera closer to whatever his subject was, basically. But he wouldn't leave, and he kept on, and he hollered out, he said, he hollered out, motherfucker. I remember that. You know, motherfucker, I'm going to knock you out. That's what I remember him hollering. And I remember my 8-year-old grandson being there. And I remember my co-worker going in the building, coming in this building to get my son to come out there. I remember my son-in-law coming closer. I remember people who were there, like Gerald and Juanita Boyd, an older couple. I just remember everybody just being so astonished that this was going on at this event that was supposed to be fun, you know. And people that were there kind of began to scatter. But I mean, I didn't think, and when I picked up the phone to call the police and he heard me talking to 911, that's about when he began to wind down and start to walk off. And then the lady that had the booth next door, from Snazzy's, I think's the name of the shop, she came over and tried to intercede. And I remember her, she had a Kleenex or something in her hand. I remember her waving it and telling him, you know, just go away. Why don't you just go away? We're just having a good time. Why don't you just go away, you know. I remember my son trying to say something to him, you know, and I remember his retort was that he was on a public sidewalk or a public street and he can do and say whatever, you know. And so, anyway, eventually, I just came back in the building.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, there were other, I mean, you know, kids were running here and there and people were saying this.
What about the incident with the water?
I kept telling Terry not to hit him. I said, look, that's all he wants. He's been put up to this. It's a setup, you know, don't hit him. Let's just try to get out of here. Let's just go inside. Let's diffuse him. So we were actually on the sidewalk, and Terry was getting a drink of water, and I remember Bob Hughes just carrying on and on and on. So I may have actually been the one that spilled the water because I remember just taking his arm for us to come inside the building. I remember us coming inside. The only other thing I remember about that is the lady at the booth next door. I remember the front of her shirt was wet. So I think that she may have actually been the one hit with the water. But once I had called the police, Bob Hughes left on foot.
Where did he go? Did he go back?
He walked north, that's all I know, from where we were. And of course, there was hundreds of people. I mean, I couldn't see him. All I know is he walked north, you know.
Let's go back to the part where he walks up, and look at this for just a second. We know he was angry about the city council situation. He's upset about that. He feels like that he's been a victim of the city. For
how many years? You know, I've been trying to think about that. It started before I even was on city council 6 years ago.
It goes back several years about his business and his beer permit. I think that's what he's upset about.
Well, as I recall, he got his beer permit, but he couldn't put signs in the windows. Now, that's the way I recall it. I could be wrong, but that's what I recall.
And I did talk with Chief Thompson and them, and they said, hey, you called and verified that, and Chief Thompson said, hey, he said, you know, it's a one-night event. He said, I didn't feel like that it was a problem. You know, he said the firemen and firefighters were going to be there at the event, and he just says that, you know, he didn't feel like that the burners with the cooking would be a problem. Now,
you know, if that's what Mr. Hughes wants to get me for, is that part?
No, I don't think that. I'm just saying
well,
that is one of his arguments.
I know, but what I'd like to say is this. Kiwanis had an event not long ago, and there were people roasting peanuts with the burners. I saw them at their event and cooking pork rinds or pork skins. I mean, every event that is permitted by city council that has food, they cook at that event. I mean, I thought that was part of the permitting process.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll be honest with you, Miss Vicky, I'm not exactly totally familiar with how those permits go, you know, the parade permits and things. But when he comes up to you, he walks by you, from my notes here, he walks past you and goes over to Terry, and according to what you told me, he films up and down Terry there stirring the chili.
Within inches of him.
Okay.
Excuse me just a minute. Yeah. Okay. Hey. Vertigo's better. Can I call you right back? All right, you just go. Bye.
Then, as he walks off, someone in the crowd who I believe we've identified as Mr. Adams and Margaret Adams makes a comment, "Hey Terry, they're already filming the winner."
I agree with that, except that at that point Bob hadn't walked off. He's still there filming.
Right.
And just up and down, you know.
Okay. He's in the area between you. Listen, would it be safe to say that Terry is here in front of the building at the chili?
Against the wall.
Right. You're standing on the sidewalk.
The edge of the street.
And then the Adamses are here in front of the car. So Mr. Hughes is somewhere between you, Terry, and the Adams. He's got paperwork in his hand, which I guess we know that to be some type of ordinances or laws or something to that effect. And when Mr. Adams makes this comment, what does Mr. Hughes say? What happens at that point?
That's when he said, and I don't remember verbatim, but that's when he said something smart-aleckly like, "That's not it at all. I'm here to see why a city councilman thinks she can break the city ordinance." And that's when he's waving this paper within inches of my nose.
Well, that's not verbatim, but that's
pretty much.
Right.
That was his opening or his opportunity to then start to attack me for breaking city ordinance.
when he does that, he in turn says that, and that's when you tell him, say, "Look, Bob, I've checked on this, I've got a permit or whatever," and then he turns around and says, "Well, you're telling me you can do this and that," and we're at this point right now. What happens at that point?
I think I kept explaining to him that I wasn't telling him anything, that I had called the fire department. I think I even told him that I talked to Captain Collins and that I was told I didn't need a permit.
Okay.
And I mean, he's adamant about shoving his camera in my face, and with the other hand, he's flailing these papers around my face.
How close do you think that the camera was to your face when he's at that point?
He was in what I call my personal space. I could have reached out and touched him.
Would you say that your personal space was an arm's reach or half an arm's reach or closer than that?
Well, when he was waving the papers, they were within inches of my nose.
Okay.
When he was touching me with his arm, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, he was right there on me, you know.
I'm not to that, at that point. See, he's done that, and then that's when you say, or you ask Terry to come over and talk to him, or what happens at that point?
He continues. I'm standing in the edge of the street.
Mm-hmm.
At no time did I approach him. He came to me.
Yes, ma'am.
And he's doing all this mess about the city ordinance and why I think I can break it and, you know, blah, 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 because I'm on the city council. And when you has his hands on me the second time, I figure that he's just going to flatten me right there in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I said, Terry, you know, can you handle this? I think's the way I said it. And Terry got up and started to get off the stool and walk toward me.
So he's touching you with these papers, and he's got papers in his hand, camera in his hand, and he's touched you.
The papers never touched me.
Okay.
In the nose.
Right.
When he put his hand on whichever, I don't know which hand, he was behind me at that point.
Okay.
So I don't know which hand he had his camera in, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I had turned. But when he grabbed my arm, it was the arm that had the papers.
Okay.
The hand. It was his hand that had the papers in it.
Okay.
And I think he was just trying to shove me aside so he could get the picture he wanted. It's what I think he was doing.
Get the what now?
Get the picture he wanted on his video camera.
Okay.
I think he was trying to just shove me. Of course, he's much taller than I am, so a lot of his videoing is going on
Well,
over the top of my head.
the reason I'm asking you this is, you know, that part, at some point in time, the camera is shut off. And what I'm trying to determine is did this happen? Okay. He says, motherfucker, I'm going to knock you out. And forgive me for using that.
Shouts it. Well, you got to say what it, I mean.
But he says that, and the camera shuts off. Okay? At one point in time, okay, you've seen the video, I've seen the video.
I have not seen all the video. I refuse to watch his creation.
Okay.
I have not seen all the video.
Okay.
John Wolfe sent the video around to various people.
Right.
And I saw, the only portion I saw was where I had my phone to my ear and my back to him.
Well, let me explain to you what happened on that part. The video was taken and it was downloaded, what he had straight from his camera, okay, into evidence. That's an evidence part. I've watched that. The part that, I guess what I'm trying to determine is this when he was touching you, was that while the camera was off, or was it while it was on, or are you unsure? Do you know?
I have no way of knowing. You know, when you're operating a video camera, you can push the button and choose to record, not record whenever you want to.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, how can I say he was recording or not recording? All I know is he had his hands on me twice and he pushed me once. From what I saw, when I had the phone to my ear and then somebody said the camera started going off or whatever, I figured that's when he actually shoved me up against my husband.
Okay, well, let's stepping through this.
So, I don't know.
When he says, motherfucker, I'm going to knock you out, was that when you were between Terry or...
I was between them. I had my back to him, to Bob Hughes.
Okay.
And I had my face to Terry. And that's about when he shoved me into Terry.
Okay.
That was the third time his body actually touched mine. But I don't think it was his hands. I think he was walking toward Terry and just pushed me.
So your back was to Bob and you were facing Terry, and at that point in time, that's when you were shoved into your husband. At any point in time, did you retaliate or push back or anything at that time?
I begged and pleaded with Bob Hughes to leave.
Okay. So at no point in time...
At no point did I touch Bob Hughes. And at no point do I want to touch Bob Hughes.
I understand. I'm asking that to cover everything, Ms. Harwell. Because that you know that'll end up being a question that will end up being asked down the road. So at no point in time did you, Bob Hughes never was touched by you, or would you?
I never saw Bob Hughes touched by anyone on the square that night. think everybody saw him as a loose cannon and wanted him to leave.
All right, we are at the point where you were between your husband and Bob. What happens after that?
I think that's when the lady at the booth next to us comes up.
Okay.
And she has best I remember is a rag or a Kleenex or something.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
she was waving it at him, and I remember her saying, we're just having a good time, or we're trying to have a good time, or something like that. You know, please just leave, please just go away. And from what I remember, she was just like in front of his camera with that rag, just saying, just trying to shoo him away, go away. You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
I remember that. And I remember that's the time that we walked up on the sidewalk.
You mentioned just a few minutes ago that you reached for your cell phone to call the police. Was there what happened prior to those chain of events there? Did he push you again or anything of that?
He had already had his hands on me twice,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I reached to call 911.
Okay. Now, when he had his hands on you twice, that was when he had the papers just mere inches from your nose, and after Mr. Adams had said they're taking a picture of the winner and he had the papers, that's when he had touched you those 2 times. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The phone, and that's when you called the police?
The 911 is who
Yes,
I
ma'am.
called.
And at this point, where were you at this point when you called 911, I guess?
Standing on the edge of the street,
Okay. Where was Mr. Hughes in relation to that?
where he had walked up to me, standing on the edge of the street. He was behind me.
Yes, ma'am.
I was facing north, and he was behind me,
And where was Mr. Harwell?
walking in front of me,
Okay.
coming to stand in front of me.
So this
Facing south.
this whole time, it's safe to say Terry was upset, and you were standing between Terry and...
In retrospect, Terry never was upset. I've seen Terry upset before.
Mm-hmm.
He, you know, I wish that I'd never said, Terry, will you take care of this? But I really thought Bob Hughes was about to plaster me right there in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And Terry calmly got up off the stool. I mean, I remember him saying, I can, or I will, or something like that. He calmly got up off the stool. He was walking toward me. And that's when Bob Hughes shouted out, come on, motherfucker, I'll knock you out. Well, at that point, people started scattering, you know.
So, when Terry got up off the stool and started walking towards Bob, that's when he hollered that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At any point in time, well, you said that you didn't see Bob.
I never saw the men touch each other at all.
Okay.
They would have had to have flattened me to have touched each other because I was in between them. At all times when they were close, I was in between them.
Okay. I think I've just about got everything. I'm just trying to run everything through my mind.
But I was afraid, you know, Charlie's a big man,
Yes, ma'am.
and I was afraid Charlie was probably fixing to step in and flatten him. I didn't want him to be in the middle of this.
Who is?
Charlie Adams.
Oh, okay.
The guy you just mentioned. You know, they're good friends of ours. They don't live here. They didn't have a clue who Bob Hughes was.
Mm-hmm.
They've been to these events before. They know they're fun, you know. Nobody was expecting this confrontation that night. I was afraid Charlie was going to get involved. I didn't want him to get involved and have charges. My son-in-law was there. I was afraid he might get involved. My son was there, but I think he had come in the office at that time.
Yes,
Co-workers. I mean, there were just so many people there that evening that I didn't want to get involved, and I could see this scene getting out of hand quickly,
Yes,
which
ma'am.
is why I
Well,
called
you did the
911.
right thing. You did the right thing calling. I mean,
We couldn't defuse it.
now we've got Terry and you and Bob, and you've called the police at this point. Let's just cover the water incident again real quick. And this is just a simple question, did you see anyone throw water on Mr. Hughes? Or what
Terry
was
had a
that?
cup, when the lady's waving the Kleenex or the rag or whatever she had in her hand, she's all in front of Bob doing that, asking him to leave. We're just having a good time to leave. That's when Terry and I turned and walked and stepped back up on the sidewalk, and there was a table set up on the edge of the sidewalk near the street.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a cooler, like a 5-gallon igloo cooler of ice water in
Yes,
it,
ma'am.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's when Terry was getting a drink. He was actually getting a drink. We were standing there, okay,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
he was getting a drink. And Bob just keeps on and pushing this lady, and finally she steps aside, or I don't know if he shoves her. I don't have a clue if he put his hands on her. I don't know. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
But he just keeps coming, and I remember at that point I pulled Terry by the arm. I jerked him by the arm, and I said, "Come on, you know, he's just trying to get you to hit him. He's trying to train wreck the election." That's what, and I'm convinced in my heart of hearts that somebody put Bob Hughes up to this, and that he did it intentionally, which is fine. But, you know, I'm just saying, the only place I saw water go was on this woman. She had water on the front of her shirt.
Well,
Did my husband attack Bob Hughes by water? That's laughable, if that's what you're asking me.
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. What I was going to ask you was did somebody fall, or was it, how did the water get thrown? That's what I'm asking.
I don't know if he fell or not. I remember pulling on his arm, and there were small styrofoam cups. I remember pulling on his arm and saying, "Let's go inside."
Mm-hmm.
Where the water went, I don't know. I saw the lady with water on her shirt. Terry and I came inside this building.
Okay.
And as we were coming inside this building, I saw Bob Hughes walking across this side intersection.
So you didn't see Terry throwing in water?
I didn't see Terry throwing in water.
Oh, Ms. Harwell, I think I've covered everything with you. Is there anything you would like, want to add, or is that?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
Do y'all investigate every incident this closely, or just because I'm on city council and Bob Hughes is after the city council? I mean, that's the question I really have.
Well, I've talked with Mr. Hughes and asked him how he wants to handle this,
Mm-hmm.
if he wants to seek it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been adamant about doing something about this. And
Oh, really?
that's the reason why
Mm-hmm.
that we have followed up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Our intention is to just do the report, and we'll give it to the district attorney's office, and if they feel like that there's something there, then I'll be in touch with you and let you know how things were going to go out. And I told Chris the same thing.
So does Bob, just out of curiosity, is Bob Hughes aware that,
Yeah, is he aware that you have
that
been
he
assaulted too?
instigated this and that he assaulted me? I mean, that's what I'm curious about.
Oh yes, ma'am. I'm sure that he's aware of that. I mean, because if you look at this whole thing, Bob came down this way, but still, he's still adamant about following through with this. And I've talked to him. The chief has talked to him, and we've asked him, hey, how do you wish to move forward with this? We're thinking that, hey, he may just want to document this and move on, but he's very adamant about moving forward and trying to do something about it.
Well, he's a vigilante,
Mm-hmm.
and he is videotaping everything with my family and my grandchildren. But that's getting real close to stalking, in my opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm about tired of him stalking me. I
Mm-hmm.
have not approached him at all for anything and don't intend to.
So you've never, and I know I'm asking this question, at no point in time have you followed Mr. Hughes around?
Never in my life have I followed Bob Hughes. His uncle that died, Terry Hughes, when Bob Hughes first opened his business, Terry Hughes brought a flyer by here. And Terry was a commissioner, and I had respect for Terry. And myself and a couple of friends went down to eat at his establishment. I've been there one time. I have never been back at that place, on his property, or around him.
The reason I'm asking that is if that is the case, we need to know about that too, about the stalking part. So at no point in time have you ever had any contact with Mr. Hughes in that respect. Any contact that you've ever had with Mr. Hughes has been strictly professional in reference to the city council or something of that nature.
I have no personal contact with Bob Hughes at all. I've never approached him to talk about anything. He has approached me, I'd say at least on 5 occasions on the sidewalk out front to try to get into an argument, a confrontation. As I said, he seems convinced that he can do and say anything he wants to on a public sidewalk.
Yes, ma'am. Your co-worker, which is Miss Harney, is that correct?
Harney.
Do you have any issues if I took a statement from her while I'm here? Would that be a problem?
I don't know what she saw as far as the chili cook-off. She was sitting, she and some other women and children were sitting on hay bales near the fire.
Well, I just want to make sure that if somebody has seen that you were assaulted, I want to get that information and where I can put that with this, because, you know, if you, with that information, that could be helpful.
She has not seen a physical assault.
Okay.
I don't think she could have seen it that night. It was dark, and there were people between where she was sitting, if you're talking about the chili cook-off.
Yes, ma'am.
There was hay bales. I don't know how to describe it for the tape, but there were hay bales right on the very corner under a tent.
Yes, ma'am.
And I remember that Miss Harney was sitting on those hay bales under that tent with Beth Warsh and a couple other people and some kids running around. She could not have seen, because the corner of the building and some other things would have been in her line of view, to have seen what Bob Hughes did.
Yes, ma'am.
That night. Now, she has seen him approach me on the sidewalk.
Well, that would be helpful too. Like I said, while I'm here, if that's not a problem, I'd like to get a statement from her on that, and we won't even stop recording. I just talk with her about if she's okay with that.
Do you want me to call her back here and ask her?
Yeah, just ask her if she's fine with that. I don't want to put her on any kind of spot or anything bad. But
hey, we're talking about Bob Hughes and some of the things that's happened, and we're talking about back in the summer whenever he would confront me when I pulled up in front of the building, you know. Do you recall the day that he was doing the loud talking and all that, and I came in and what we were talking about? No, I don't remember the exact day either. Officer Turner just wanted to ask you some questions about, you know, what you saw about him approaching and things like that. Can you come back here? Okay. She was saying she don't remember the exact date. I don't either.
As far as the statement, and I have to ask this question, as far as the statement you've given to me this morning, is all the information that you've given to me the truth?
It's the truth as far as I know it, Officer Turner. Things happened so quickly that night. There were people trying to come up and get chili, and they were saying that there was an altercation going on. They were leaving. I mean, I can kind of recall who some of them were. They came in, they came out. You know, it was just hundreds of people that evening.
This is your statement as you recall it?
As I recall it, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But I have no doubt that he had his hands on me.
Yes,
none whatsoever.
Okay. Do you want me to, can we just step into the conference room there, or are you?
Or I can move.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Hi, Sheila.
Hello.
I'm following up on this incident with Mr. Hughes. And just so you're aware, we're doing a recorded statement. I did a recorded statement with Ms. Harwell.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit about what I know there's been some things here over the summer in which Mr. Hughes has been around. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
The only thing that I saw was one day she pulled up, and he was like, I think he was maybe like walking up, or he was either next door, and I heard him say something about, no, please don't run for mayor, or something like that. You just be like the others, or something like that. And just going on, and she was just telling him, come talk to me, I can talk to you, you don't know nothing about me, blah, blah. And that was it. And that's the only thing I heard him say, and they were going back and forth. And that was it that day. And that's the only thing I've ever just really, if any other time I hadn't been around, if he stopped and did anything to her.
How about at the chili cook-off?
When he came by and he spoke to me, and I spoke to him, and after we spoke, and He went up, he was filming with it or whatever, and when I heard Kay say, go get Chris, and Chris came out, and they were all talking whatever, I walked the other way, because I didn't want to be part of it. So, I had walked by.
So you didn't see any physical confrontation?
Because I was on this side over here. I had walked by, and I had helped somebody get some chili, then I walked back this way, and I went walking around the square. I didn't want to be no part of it.
So you left?
I did.
Did you see, at any point in time, did you see Mr. Hughes assault Ms. Harwell? Or do anything to Ms. Harwell? I
didn't.
Okay. At any point in time, did you see Mr. Harwell do anything to Mr. Hughes?
Nope.
Okay. All right. How about Miss Worsham? Did she stick around to see anything? Beth Worsham?
Oh, Beth Worsham. I don't know. I didn't, cause see, I was sitting over there. I'm trying to think who was over there with me. When he walked by, I think I was sitting by myself. And everybody was like toward that way. And Beth was over there earlier with me, but I don't know if she was over there in the middle of it or not. I don't remember, because, I mean, like I said, I was not trying to get in it, so I went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't remember seeing her.
Okay. So, cover all this again. You didn't see any of the confrontation. The only thing that you was asked to do was to go inside and get Chris.
She was just hollering it. She wasn't necessarily hollering at me.
Okay.
She was just hollering, and I heard her say it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and then I was like, what's going on or whatever, and that's when I, like, you know, saw him. Then he came out, and then he was talking. They was all sitting right there, and that's when I went the other way.
So you didn't see any water being thrown or anything?
I didn't see it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you talking with me.
No problem.
Just go get her, and we'll go from there and see if she has anything else. Hi, Ms. Harwell. At this time, I'm going to stop the recorder. Is there anything else we need to, are we good with everything? Is this anything else you would like to add or ask? Or?
I don't have anything else to add. The only thing that I will say is I wish that Bob Hughes, if he feels he's been wronged, would come and talk to the whole city council instead of following me or any one of us. I think that his actions are going to lead to trouble for himself or somebody else.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it's gotten to the dangerous point.
Yes, ma'am. Well, if that, I'm going to stop the recorder at this time. This is going to conclude our statement with Miss Harwell.
Hey, you doing all right?
Doing good.
How you doing? Huh? How you doing?
Terry, they taking the picture of the winner.
I'm just documenting why that they're allowed to violate the fire ordinances, but my business is...
Check with them. I got me a permit, Bob. You can go
Did
check
you?
with them. I do.
Oh, so you get a permit over
I
that?
am not going to deal with you tonight. You've been ugly with me all the time.
Well,
What
when a
suggest you
person-
do is just
when-
leave our booth.
Actually,
Yeah, I can take care of it. Real
actually, I can stand here on the street
You want to get on?
now. Hey,
Take that out of my face.
I got every right.
Take that. You ain't got no right.
Motherfucker, you're about to get knocked out. I got every right to stand right here and film.
You ain't got a right to say what you say.
What did I say?
You don't know when you can sit here talking, vulgar.
I got the laws right here that say it's illegal
It is one-on-one
for you to be in
South
It ain't legal for you to be
Get away
talking
from my
like
dad,
you
please.
are.
How am I talking?
You don't know what you said.
Get
Go
away from my
away.
dad.
You seem to be the one
Get somebody up
that's
here.
the problem.
He's
I
got
don't
you on
think so.
tape.
Well, you're the one that came off your seat.
Put his cell phone tape.
Huh?
He's the one that caused
Yes.
the problem.
You're the one causing the problem.
South
I got
first
it.
of the chili cook-off. There's a guy named Bob.
Chris,
Get him away.
you about like
Get back on. All right, bye.
you and Alan Barrett. Y'all about like two biggest nuts in Giles County.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see. Now, this all would be alleviated if a person that's sitting on the city council that's running for mayor that's right here.
I'm not on the city council.
She is. She is. I don't care about
She
you.
ain't got nothing to do with it. This is me.
Actually, she
I'm a
does.
commissioner. I'm a county commissioner.
Yeah, and I know you're in my
What you
district.
gonna do about it?
Oh no, keep on talking. Keep on talking.
Well, he ain't nothing. Faggot.
What'd you call me?
You know what you are.
No, what'd you call me?
You know what you are.
What did you call me?
My husband is a United States soldier, and you're being a jerk right now.
Listen, don't come over here.
He's not
just
right.
try to do
He was
that.
away.
Don't.
Now, what did you call me?
came over here just trying
Actually,
to start
this,
We're having a good time. We're having a good time. Let's just don't.
Did you see that?